Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 37 of Logicast, the AWS News Podcast brought to you by Logicata. I'm Carl Robinson, CEO and co-founder of Logicata, and I'm joined today, as always, by lead cloud engineer, DIY aficionado and karate expert, John Goodall. How are you doing today, John?
That's getting longer and longer, isn't it?
Well, you keep taking up new hobbies, so I have to keep adding them to the to your introduction.
I'm good. I'm good. As my little bubble says, I won a thing, which I can
Woohoo!
talk about. I know.
What
I am
thing did you
now.
win?
I
What thing
won
did you
the
win?
Amazon Q challenge coin.
So how did you win the Amazon Q challenge coin?
Weirdly, I won a Q challenge at ComSum, which it's been all over our feeds, but I should put it up here anyway in case, folk don't follow both of us on LinkedIn religiously and have missed every single one of our posts. The ID badges are floppy disks. That's just great. That's amazing. And it looks like a real disc too, like the whole protector.
Yes.
It looks like it works. It's great.
The thing I liked about that the most was the fact that they don't spin around like conference name badges normally do, because that is the worst thing. Every conference you go to, the name badge is hanging from a single bracket and they flip around the wrong way around. So you go up to someone to talk to them and you can't see their name because their badge has gone the wrong way around. That's completely solved with the floppy disk name badges. But I suspect,
I mean, to be fair, I don't know that it's I suspect they found a job lot of them in a warehouse somewhere, to be really honest. I don't think it's the floppy disk that caused that. I think it was the two attachment points at the sides that did that rather than the one in the middle.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Because you go back a few years, Summit 23, big wide badge, and that had the two, and I think that was fine.
Well, there we go. Yeah, conference organizers, give us a double attachment on your ID badges, please, because that definitely seems to work better. So congratulations on winning the challenge coin, John. Have you figured out where you can spend it yet?
Nerd points only, I'm afraid. I think there's only, what did Ricardo say, the guy that ran it? Ricardo said there was only something like 50 of them in the world or something. So, I mean, the concept of a challenge coin is something that, as a Brit, I struggle with. I think it's quite an American concept. US military people quite a lot, as I understand. So I struggle with it conceptually, but the way I've sort of been describing it to folk, particularly the kids, has been, it's like a medal, but you don't wear it, and I just happen to win.
You could try wearing it. You could start a new trend.
Have to drill a hole in it or something. I don't. That's
then you might.
It's just gonna. It'll live on the desk.
Value.
I mean, it'll go on the desk alongside my, squeezy community builder cloud and that kind of thing.
Clutter. Add to the clutter.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's introduce today's special guest. So we're waffling on about ComSum and floppy disks and challenge coins, but very rudely not introduced our guest, fellow AWS community builder, Mahmoud Khatib. How are you doing today, Mahmoud?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Yeah, I'm very well. A little bit tired. It's been a bit busy weekend, and obviously the conference last week was also quite draining. But all good. Shouldn't complain. But tell us a little bit about yourself, Mahmoud, and what you do for the AWS community and in the world of cloud.
Yes, my name is Mahmoud Khatib. Now I'm working based in Dubai. Yes, I'm working as a cloud engineer, cloud architect for like a cloud deployment or design in general, AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. Since I moved to Dubai in 2022, I joined the user group in Dubai. We have user group in Dubai. I didn't know about this user group. I started joining every month, and now it's becoming like more than 3 years. Now I'm a user leader, user group leader in Dubai. So we're organizing meetup every month, mainly in person, sometimes in online, but mainly in person in Dubai each month. So now I'm helping in organizing meetup, finding speakers, organizing the meeting, and joining the Cloud Day Summit in UAE, because they open in 2022, they open the region in UAE. So since then, we have each year we have a Cloud Day and we have a Summit Day.
Yeah.
And Saturday and weekend, we had the first user group in Syria, in Damascus. we have been working on opening user group since we're working since 3 months. We're working with AWS to help us with this step. And yesterday we had the first user group, and today we published the recorded session on YouTube and on our LinkedIn page in order to share knowledge with engineers in Syria, students, and even engineers outside Syria, okay, who is from Syria and they're working already with the AWS and cloud. So yesterday we were thinking to introduce first, because in Syria there's no such people or audience for AWS. So first session was to introduce what was AWS, what is user group, how they will join, how they will get benefit. So we are planning in coming 2 months to have a in person. We will go to Syria and we'll organize the first in person user group.
Cool. Is that where you're from originally before you moved to Dubai?
Yes, I am from Alibaba, from Syria. Yes.
Cool. So it sounds like you're very busy with the community stuff, because John and I know very well how much work goes into organizing a user group, because we run the Brighton user group together with a couple of other volunteers. And you've reminded me that our next one is a month away from today. So we really need to start promoting that and getting that out there. We only do it quarterly right now, but we're going to go every other month next year. So 50% increase in workload, but we have had 100% increase in committee members. So hopefully we should be able to cope with that. But yeah, there's a lot of work goes into organizing.
And to be
these
fair,
events,
I think we've already got 3 of our events next year kind of locked down already. We know what we're doing and that kind of thing. So we're kind of half done already, and it's September. We're actually better prepared for next year than we are for our next event.
Okay, yeah. So we just need to get that one out of the way. Yeah, it's yeah.
So
And
both of you on the UK?
yeah,
Yes.
we're both in the UK. Yeah,
You have one user group like in
It's 26, I think.
26?
Lots, yeah, lots. Yeah.
Allah.
Yeah. So there is the User Group UK, which is kind of the London event, if you like, but it's called User Group UK. And then there are smaller user groups all around the country, pretty much. Lots of the major cities in the UK all have their own user groups. So ours is Brighton, which is on the south coast, south of London. Yeah, you've got I don't know, Nottingham, Norwich, Bristol.
Well, there isn't one.
Birmingham.
No, there isn't. Not that was because it's
East
funny
Midlands,
because
Midlands,
yeah, it's
yeah.
East Mids, because there's a few that are tied to cities, and there's a few that are tied to regions, and then there's the country one as well. So Thames Valley isn't a city. It's kind of like sort of the Slough Reading area, but it's a region. You've got East Anglia, but they tend to just do it in Norwich. You've got East Mids, which I think is closing down because one of the leaders sadly passed away earlier in the year, and I think they've just gone, no one else wants to do it anymore. But then you've got others that are kind of tied to cities. So there's us, I think there's Bristol, I think there's Bath, and other places starting with a B.
Yep. So yeah, very vibrant community in the UK.
Might be one in Belfast, but that's not in the UK.
Yeah, I don't know. Need to double check the map. But we are on the map. So we are on the interactive user group map. You need to make sure that both of yours are also on the interactive user group map, Mahmoud, that will be on the community booth at reInvent. So certainly we were on there last year, but you need to make sure that Dubai and Damascus both make it onto that interactive map, so that anybody who is fortunate enough to attend reInvent can find out all about your user groups. Anyway, we're not here to talk about user groups, even though that's something that clearly we all do on a regular basis. We are here to talk about AWS news. So once a week, I curate a list of AWS news, which I share via my weekly AWS News Roundup newsletter. And then John shares his pick of the articles with our guest. And of course, we do have such a selection of articles to talk about today with John and Mahmoud. So the first of those articles is a new feature announcement all about Amazon EC2 autoscaling, now supporting forced cancellation of instance refreshes. So, John, what was it that caught your eye about this particular article?
Because it's a big red cancel button, and I like big red cancel buttons in service announcements. I don't think the button's actually red, but that's kind of the message here, right? So, couple of definitions for the uninitiated. Instance refresh is a thing you do within an auto-scaling group when you want to refresh the instances. Weird. One of those things that's actually named quite well. What that does is that brings on a new instance. It does it in kind of one of a few ways, but it brings on new instances, gets rid of old instances, moves traffic across, just kind of cycles things, right? Why would you do that? Well, because you happen to want to just refresh your instances because your application has a memory leak. That could be a bad reason to do it, but it's a reason to do it. Or more commonly, because you've changed some part of the launch template, maybe the AMI, maybe some details about how big the servers need to be, whatever, and you need to change them, but you don't want to cause any downtime or you want to minimize your capacity reduction. You do that through an instance refresh. As I say, there's several ways of doing that. You can do it, they're all rolling, but there's a couple of ways of doing it. You can bring instances on and then off and then on and then off. So you go flex up and then back down to size and then up and then down to size. Or you do it the other way and you take instances away and then bring new ones on and you flex down and flex back up again. Those are kind of the two ways of doing it. You can do it in custom ways as well, but those are, they're all flavors of that effectively. The challenge with this is if you happen to be pushing out a bad update, which happens, best will in the world and all the testing and so on, you can push a bad update occasionally. If you cancelled the instance refresh, you had to wait for anything that was in progress to finish. So you could have one in and you've served some traffic to it and you've worked out that it's not going very well and you want to cancel and just not complete it and just roll it back or whatever. And you had another one that was in process. You had to wait for that. So you'd have both of them being bad. You'd have to wait for all of that to finish and then change the launch template and kick it off again. Because with things like instant refreshes, unlike a blue-green deployment, you can't just go, and shove it all back to the old setup because you've brought new instances on or you've terminated old instances already. So if you do have a bad deploy, you have to fix forward. And what you'd have to do in this case, up until now, is you'd have to wait for the current thing to finish, which could be another instance, which is is bad, to go in before you can fix forward some more. And that's a major cause of stress and problems for on-call engineers. I would know, I am one occasionally, and that's a real problem. As of now, though, as of the 24th of September, so about a week ago now, you don't have to do that. You can insta-cancel, stop, and it will just stop whatever it's doing. So you might have a bad instance, but you don't have to wait for the next one. So you're not sitting there waiting, stressed, waiting for things to finish and going, oh, come on, because these things can take a while to come on, sort of 4 or 5 minutes for a new instance to come online. And you don't have to wait for that anymore. So you can just go, stop, and it will just stop dead, which is much, much better.
Cool. Sounds good. What are your thoughts on this, Mahmood?
I was curious how to read more about when do you want to use this feature. So you want to use when you want intersection, you have some issue and you want to stop immediately. Like as John said, you want to stop now. You don't need to wait and waste time. And also, if you have failing rollout, and you need to prevent any more damage. Okay, so in these two use cases we only use one command and it's finished.
Command doesn't sound quite as exciting as a big red button, but I'd like to think of it as a big red button that you could have on your desk. I
mean, with a bit of work, you could make a big red button. You could, because you buy the button, connect it to a Raspberry Pi with a bit of wiring and soldering, whatever, and then that button press runs a script that just goes and runs the command. So you could have a big red stop button. It'd be quite hard for us to use that because you'd have to authenticate it to whatever relevant client account you need. But, if you're an internal guy and you happen to have a few hours of free time and some other hardware and a soldering iron, I'm sure you could do it.
Dash buttons, such a shame that Amazon discontinued them. I used to love the dash buttons.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I used to like having a order me more toothpaste button in my bathroom cabinet next to where I kept the toothpaste. I finished my toothpaste, I pressed the button, and that was all I had to do to place the order. Quite why that didn't catch on, I don't know. But not that that's particularly relevant to this discussion. But have you guys actually been caught out by this? Not by running out of toothpaste and not having a dash button.
Yeah, toothpaste all the time.
They're being with instance refreshes and thinking, I need to. I'm waiting. Has there been occasions where you would have found this useful?
Yeah.
I was thinking if we can use automation for this, if we can use lambda function, if we're waiting so much, instance is not terminated or not started, we can have lambda function and see if like more than 5 minutes, then you can implement this command.
It's an interesting idea because that brings you a lot. Yeah, big button. It brings you a lot closer to how code deploy behaves with the blue-green, because with code deploy and blue-greens, you can hook up CloudWatch alarms so that if you start seeing a big spike in error rates, it'll go, oh, that's not meant to happen, and abort and roll back. It means you can get a lot closer to that automatic behavior, which is really cool. But you do have to build it yourself, which bothers me. Like, I'd like this to be automated, please.
Well, there we go. Feature request for the new feature.
As ever.
V2 enhancement, perhaps. But anyway,
on 2.1.3_final_ really, really final.
Yeah. Or we could use Claude naming and just go straight to number 5 or whatever it is.
Because when they have a new update, you have new metrics in CloudWatch. So you need. I think if they don't write everything in documentation at beginning, and you need to try it yourself at beginning. You need to check this metric, how you measure this metric, how you can implement anything with this metric.
Cool. Well, let's move along to our second article for this week. And this is another feature announcement, but this time we're moving on from EC2 auto-scaling to RDS, of course, the managed database service. And Amazon RDS has announced cross-region and cross-account snapshot copy. So, of course, you've always been able to copy snapshots between regions and accounts, but it would appear that they've now made that easier. So, John, again, it'll be something that you think will be making your life easier?
Marginally. It's not something I do a huge amount, but marginally. In the past, sure. Like, this was a thing, and I saw Corey Quinn's newsletter come out mentioning this one, and I think he said, this is a thing you asked for in 2013. It's finally happened. Not wrong. He then goes on to bash Oracle, which is not unwarranted, but there we go. So this is an interesting one because, well, why would you want to do this, right? So let's ignore the whole backup piece for the minute, because you could do this with AWS backup. You can do this anyway, right? So that's not anything new or earth-shattering. You can do cross-region, cross-account copies of snapshots taken via AWS backup because AWS backup's handling that. So that's not what this is talking about. You can do it anyway through backup, but that's a bit of a pain, and you might not be wanting to use that because you're only backing your database up and you'd rather keep it all within the database service, for instance. More likely, why you're needing to do this is you're deploying something to a new region and you don't want to use DMS because you're silly, or you're backfilling something to a dev environment, therefore you don't need to be setting up all the DMS faffage or something like that. And how would you do this before? Well, it was 2 commands. You could still do it, but it was 2 steps, right? The first thing you do is you would copy it cross snapshot, and then you copy it cross region and then cross account, or cross account and then cross region, because they live in regions and they live in accounts. Now you can just do it in one go rather than 2. So it potentially saves you hours of waiting, because there's just lots of waiting for these sorts of things. And if you're using custom scripts rather than AWS backup, 1, you're an idiot, stop doing it, just use backup. But 2, it means that you can, you eliminate a bunch of code. So in theory, you make your life a bit easier. But as I say, this is not anything earth-shattering or groundbreaking. You could do this within AWS backup. So if you're doing it for backup purposes, this is like, okay, I don't get the point. But if you're doing it for, refreshing a different environment somewhere else, or standing up a new environment from a copy of it, then yeah, I can see the utility. And they've just effectively chained the 2 commands together for you and saved you lots of waiting time.
What are your thoughts on this, Mahmood? Have you been sat around waiting for RDS snapshots to move between accounts and regions before?
Yes, mainly for RDS, because RDS they are using EBS, same like EC2 instance. They are using EBS as a storage. Yes, and before you need to perform 2 steps. You need to copy. You need to take a snapshot, then copy. Okay, for RDS. For Aurora, you need to create a snapshot, and then you need to share. You need to account ID for the destination. You need this account ID and then share. So 2 steps. Here you have only 1 step. And before, if you want to automate this and you don't want to wait, so you need to configure automation workflow. You need event bridge and Lambda function, okay, to take snapshot and then send to the destination account. So this is slow, complex, and will have a cost. When you send to another region, you have a cost, okay. For Aurora, they don't have EBS. They have cloud native storage, okay. But now after the update, you have only one thing to do, one step, instead of 2 steps, and more cost and less time. That's what I see the difference.
Cost is an interesting point, because if you're having to jump it through another region or another account to get to kind of the target, it's very easy to leave something behind because you're not moving, you're copying. And it's very easy to leave these snapshots behind, and they can be quite big, and that does cost you money.
And is it less on the data interregion data transfer, or will that still be the same?
I would think it's the same, because you're still moving the same amount of data from region to region, and there's no fees from going from account to account, and they don't live in VPCs or anything like that. So I would think that element is the same, but you can absolutely just forget that you've left some, snapshots where you didn't need them permanently.
Yep. Orphaned snapshots is a common one to pick up on cost optimization tools.
So I see the difference between the first update and now. Not every time automation is good. In this use case, automation, you need to configure automation and will take time. But with this solution, it's better without automation.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay, well, let's move on from RDS into an article on the AWS security blog, all about unlocking new possibilities. As such a grand, opener to the title for this article. But this article is all about AWS organizations' service control policy now supporting full IAM language. So John seems to be quite excited about this, but you're going to have to hold your excitement for a moment, because I'd actually like to allow Mahmoud to speak first on this one before you say everything there is to say. So just hold that thought, and you can fill us in when we've heard Mahmoud's insights on this. Oh, it's raining in John's office. So what are your thoughts? Are you excited about this one, Mahmoud, as John is?
I think less, but less than John. This month I got certified with the AWS security specialist. So
congratulations.
Thank you. So I see how much is important to configure everything at the edge. So this, if you want to compare, if you need to secure infrastructure and you have load balancer, public load balancer, it's secure, but you need to have in the front, you need to have CloudFront, and you need to have WAF service. So you block all requests at the edge. Similar like SCP, you are blocking all requests at the edge or at the top level. No need to, because if you check the IAM workflow or how the request will go, we'll start with the SCP. Okay, so you are checking now here before you go to the IAM policy and everything to low level. So here is, imagine you blocking the request at beginning is less complex, okay, will not take time, okay, and no need to configure tag or rules. So you have everything at the edge as SCP at the first layer.
John,
but I like the 2 examples in the article. When they Bedrock, in Bedrock you have models, and you need to configure policy to allow user to use only one model. So it's much easier with this update.
Easier to not make mistakes in the configuration. A bit more intuitive, I think.
And this question, they always make this. They always ask this question in exam. Maybe you will forget the tag. That's common issue.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very excited about this, but for very specific reasons. Very specific reasons. Because I can see actual utility behind this, not just, oh yeah, that's cool. Actual proper utility behind this. This can start to replace permissions boundaries within your IAM roles. That's why I'm quite excited about this, because permissions boundaries. Now, I have spent a lot of time. I don't write them quite a lot anymore, but I have in the past. I've written a lot of SCPs as part of our landing zone product. I'm going to have to rewrite a bunch as we rework that. Cool. I spent a disgusting amount of time writing permissions boundaries for various landing zone deployments and custom requirements, and just kind of generally as well. Right. SCPs are very, very good because, as Mahmoud says, you are controlling access at the edge, at the boundary. This is what can happen in this account at this level. Brilliant. And what's even better is you can control that from outside of the account that it applies to, because with the exception of delegated admins, okay, we'll ignore that thing for a while. They live within the organization. They don't live within a specific account. They live within the organization. And okay, that runs from the management account and you can delegate admin to another account, but they live within the organization. And you can't, SCPs don't apply to the management account because you can't restrict it. Fine. But this means that you can't change the permissions that you're allowed to have from within the account that's being restricted. Now, that's amazing because a big chunk of what I've had to write before with permission boundaries, which for the uninitiated, permissions boundary is an IAM policy applied as a maximum you're allowed to do rather than the minimum, because IAM is deny by default. If you don't have a permission, you can't do it. Whereas a boundary is the opposite. It's still denied by default, but what you're saying is this is the maximum that you're allowed to do, even if another policy over has it, right? So you can have admin access, but deny reading from this S3 bucket, for argument's sake, because there's something in there that you're not allowed to see. Cool. But then you have to put a whole bunch of stuff in the permissions boundary to prevent privilege escalation. So to prevent people that have the boundary attached to them from being able to detach the boundary, from updating the boundary, from creating roles that don't have the boundary, so on and so on and so on. Yeah, because you have to go through a whole big mental exercise, or write it down, but I did it mentally because I am a bit, of saying, well, here's all the sorts of things that we're trying to protect against. Brilliant. Here's all the things that we want to prevent people from being able to do to undo those protections. And invariably, unless you've got a very complicated boundary policy, most of the policy is protecting against privilege escalation. You don't need to do that with an SCP because it's applied outside of the account. It's above the account. So people inside the account that you're protecting against can't get to it. Brilliant. And okay, that applied anyway. That's the same. But now you can be much more granular with what you're trying to do within the SCP because it supports full IAM. And okay, action versus not action, that's quite handy. Resource versus not resource, again, that's quite handy. So block unless it's these, as opposed to block only those. That's quite, that's useful. Conditions are always great. So I love all of these things. But what's more useful for me as a lazy engineer is I can now use more wildcards in my statements. Because again, old world, you could only use wildcards either by themselves or at the end of an element, i.e. you could do S3 star, that was okay, or S3 read star, that was okay. Now you can do, and the example that I use here is, service name some star action, which is, because that's the thing, because you could have described lots of different things and then something on the end, which is, that's really, really, really useful. So yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. That makes my life a whole lot easier. There's some examples as well that you can go and see. So, action and not action, really handy. Resource and not resource, really handy. Updated wildcards, really handy. Even though on a well-architected review, you get picked up on using your wildcards, but it's really, really useful. So I get quite excited about this. I can see actual application to some of our customer base for this. So I'm going to see if I can't make this work because it make our life managing certain landing zones a lot easier, because that way we can, if ever we need to make a change to what we're allowed to do, which, we've prevented ourselves from doing that, but sometimes you do need to be able to do it. So this is something that could be done just a whole lot easier. And rather than having a boundary policy in dozens of accounts that need to be updated in lots of places, it exists in one place now rather than 30. So even if you still have to preclude yourself from being able to do it because of terms of service or whatever, it just makes everybody's life a whole heap easier because it is in one place now, not 30 plus.
So do you need to go and rewrite a load of SCPs, or do you just need to write a new one that
So they're backwards compatible. I don't need to write. I don't need to rewrite them to work with this new because they're backwards compatible. So the existing ones will continue to work, but I will probably tweak them a little bit just because it makes sense that I can use slightly updated features as we rework our landing zone. And then this other one that I'm quite excited about, I need to chat to the customer very specifically, who they may or may not be listening. I don't know. I don't think they're active listeners to this one, but you know who you are. If you are, you know who you are. And just see if it's something we can do because it'll make everybody's life easier.
Cool. Well, there we go. See why you're so enthusiastic about it. You're always enthusiastic about things that make your life easier.
I can't remember who it was that said, "Hire the lazy engineer." Hi, it me.
I think it was you that said that. Hi, I'm a lazy engineer. Hire me.
Yeah. Chortle. I think Bill Gates or someone was credited with that. I shall have to check.
Anyway, on that note, lazy engineers, let's move along to further simplification. For lazy engineers, this is an article on the AWS Cloud Operations blog all about simplifying log management using Amazon CloudWatch logs centralization. Now, you just mentioned well-architected framework there, John. Log centralization is one of the best practices under probably
security, reliability. It sits in a couple of them.
Yeah.
Specifically security.
Operational excellence,
maybe OPEX.
Anyway, but there's definitely at least one or more best practices in the well-architected framework, all about centralizing logs. And here is a way that you can do that using CloudWatch. So, John, tell us a little bit about this and why you might want to do this versus other methods of log centralization.
Yeah, there's a lot, right? There's a lot. This specifically refers to CloudWatch logs. So before you start saying, "Oh, you can already do that with CloudTrail," don't at me. This isn't that. Don't at me. Okay, just don't go there. Yes, for CloudTrail, you've been able to do this for a long time. You just have your everything targeting the one bucket, and it delineates itself by account number within the target bucket, and you have a log archive account. Brilliant. Now you can do that for your application logs. That's it. That's the whole post. You can do that with your application logs now. What they're talking about here is it's an extension of the cross-account observability. So cross-account observability came out, I want to say a year ago now. It's a little while, but not huge lengths of time. So I want to say about a year ago, where you could query logs across lots of different accounts from one pane of glass. I don't know what we call it that anymore. Screens don't have glass on them, but from one view. And that was great because you didn't have to jump into your dev and your staging, your prod, and your this and your that and the other to kind of look across things. And it's more relevant, I guess, for single tenant production applications where you've got, 10 users, 10 customers, for argument's sake, each in their own account, but with the same application and generating very similar logs. And you want to know how many customers are potentially affected by an issue. So that was quite useful. Now, rather than you having to have them in their own places and look across them and worry about managing them kind of in their own places, now what you can do is you can just ship them into one place and look at them much more directly, which is also really handy for doing further processing, like I think OpenSearch, think seam tools. I know it's app logs, but send your app logs to your seam tool anyway. Think Athena queries, all those sorts of things that are really awkward to do cross account or across lots of accounts at the same time. You don't need to anymore because they're all in one place. It's a bit of faff to get it going, but it's absolutely worth the headache if you run a multi-tenant application. Sorry, not a multi-tenant application. If you run multiple instances of a single tenant application, it's absolutely worth doing.
What are your thoughts on this, Mahmood? Anything to add to that?
Yes, because when I was preparing to the exam, there's a lot of questions about automation and how to make your life easier. Okay. So in this, not only CloudWatch, but many services, you need to create dedicated account, dedicated administrator account. Okay. And then you'll forward all logs to there. You need to configure source as destination. I need to configure where to send these logs, Kinesis, and install logs in S3. Okay, you need to configure IAM rules in order to send these logs. But now here you only need to do 2 steps. You need to enable trust access and OU level. Then you need to enable this in the CloudWatch tab. Okay, no need to. Before it would take time. When you send logs to Kinesis at S3, it would take time, and it's not even near real time. But now it's much faster, and also because I'm working on a project to have our SaaS solution on AWS, and we need to collect all logs from all our customer accounts. So now we can configure this, use this update or this new configuration instead of the old one.
Cool. And I did see a note about cost in the article somewhere, but are you doubling up on your log storage costs by centralizing them and retaining them in the source location, or how does that work?
I think you could. But the point is, you don't have to. Excuse me. I've caught your cold remotely. Although we were in the same room for quite a lot of last week, so there's
conference room. Just clarify that in case anybody gets the wrong idea. Warehouse, yeah, lots of other people there as well. So
same restaurant too. That was a really nice curry goat, actually. That was quite good. So yeah, I've caught you cold remotely. So yes, in theory you could double up on your costs, right? But I think this, in theory, makes that less likely. Because instead of having your multiple, particularly for the multi-tenants, I keep calling it that, the multiple single tenant application design, which if you're doing that, why? But it's a thing, people do it. Instead of having multiple log groups and things to worry about managing and keeping them on top and so on, and then having to jump in and query them, you have your infrastructure code just default to a really low number for retention, day 2. Something operationally useful so that you can jump into that one customer without having to do multi-customer queries. And then you have your proper retention in your target account. So yes, there will be a slight cost implication. There'll be a big cost implication if you get it wrong, but there'll be a big cost implication if you get it wrong anyway. So I don't think it's a big risk.
It does say in the post that the first copy of centralized logs comes with no additional ingestion charges or cross-region data transfer costs, but I assume it does still come with storage costs.
Yeah, it would just be the storage I'd be worried about. And to be really honest, CloudWatch storage is reasonably cheap. It's the ingest that tends to bite you.
Cool. Okay.
I'd add, before they used to call it, or they used to use subscription filter. You need to configure a subscription filter on each source account, and you need to repeat the same configuration on each source account.
So this is quite a lot simpler than the old methods.
I think so.
Cool.
But I think I have a question. This only if you have large environment. If you have
I don't.
accounts, right?
Yeah, I don't see this being useful if you're running an actual multi-tenant application where you have one production account for everything, where you've got everything in one place. I don't see that being useful. I personally see the use case where you've got, as I say, multiple copies of a very similar application deployed to different customers, and you could do multiple single tenants for data isolation. Is kind of the only reason I could come up with. But data isolation stops applying to your log data in practice, so it's one of those things. And the other thing is that it says in the article, to be fair, is be strategic with your centralization. So my example is just send everything and worry about it later. Theirs is actually only send stuff that you should be able to see in one place. So that's kind of the other view.
Cool. Well, on that note, let's move along to our final article for this week, and it must be Magic Quadrant season, because I'm sure we spoke about Magic Quadrants on last week's episode,
and the one before,
and the one before. There we go. So it's obviously Magic Quadrant season. It's the time of year when Magic Quadrants get published. So we've got another Magic Quadrant for you, which of course AWS is in the leader quadrant for. We wouldn't be talking about it if they weren't, I'm sure, or AWS wouldn't be anyway. So this is an article on the.
We sometimes talk about it when they're in challengers and visionaries, but close to leader. They definitely don't talk about it when they're in niche player.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But I don't think AWS is a niche player in many markets, are they? So, yeah. So this is an article on the AWS DevOps and Developer Productivity blog, all about AWS being named as a leader in the 2025 Gartner Magic Quadrant for AI code assistants. And John's what a coin, lovely, yeah. And John, you've been quite vocally critical of AI coding assistants in the past, but I think now that you've won a coin, I'm sure that's not the main reason, but having had the opportunity to play with a couple of AI coding assistants at the ComSum conference last week in workshops, certainly you seem to be enthusing a little bit more about these tools after seeing the kind of the latest versions of them in those workshops.
Oh, so, absolutely.
So tell us more.
So I have, as our friend Brian likes to say, waterboarded the Kool-Aid on this one. As I love that so much. I'm going to keep using that. I love that so much. Yeah, so as you say, I've been vocally critical of them, basically calling them little more than IntelliSense, which for a long time they were. And I did have a chat with some folk at the workshop, and Q, formerly Code Whisperer, particularly the CLI version, was terrible. It was very, very, very bad. And the thing that they bought, Fig, I was a user of Fig before, and I uninstalled Code Whisperer because it was so bad. I uninstalled it in protest because it was terrible. I really liked Fig, and it was really useful. It did one thing, and it did it really well. And then they made it crap. And somehow they've uncrapped it in about 18 months, which is incredibly impressive. And I think this is why I've kind of sheep dipped myself kind of on purpose a bit at the conference, just to try and get over my personal inertia about it. So at the conference, I had a play with Q Developer and I won. And I'm going to keep going on about that. But I only won. To be fair, it was 15 minutes. You had to solve a bunch of questions. You had 15 minutes to do it. And in 15 minutes, I won by something like, I think it was about 500 or 600 points, which sounds like a lot, but bear in mind I'd got 31,000, so I only won by a few hundred points out of over 30,000 points. So it was a very tight run competition. It was very close, and almost all of that was because I was just a bit quicker at using Q, and I think I got its context a bit better. The other thing I played with, and we'll talk about the Quadrant in a minute, was Kiro. And again, you have to be on a wait list to get through that. But again, because it was a sort of semi-sanctioned event, as it were, I got an access code and I got to play with it a little bit early without having to sit on the waiting list. And oh my God, it's amazingly good. Like I had it developing it took 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe of me working out how to do it and giving it the right prompts and giving it the right context. And it was putting out... what would I call it? Like a one-page profile. So I have one on me. It's just, hi, I'm John. I do these. Here's all the links to my certificates. Here's all the links to my other things that I do on the internet. Link to my GitHub, blah, blah, blah. That took me about a week to put together the old-fashioned way. And that was after forking it from someone else who had made an example post. And I've kept it up to date over the years. But it took me a very long time to get that to work properly because I don't do front end. I'm a back-end engineer. I don't do front end. In about 15 minutes, Kiro had done something that was 5 times better than what I could do. It's like, I don't need to learn front end. I'll just get Kiro to do it because I'm good enough at general programming that I can debug where it gets wrong. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So I'm really, really, really now on board. I've completely drunk the Kool-Aid on this. I've waterboarded, drowned in it, marinated in it, whatever you want to say. So now I'm going to just espouse the good word about these things because I want a coin, which I don't win anything, and I'm really happy about that. I never win anything. And I've had a proper play with them now, and just, pace of innovation is ridiculous. So Luddite like me has to just get over it and keep up. Onto the Magic Quadrant, however, now that I've enthused a little bit. The fact that Claude code isn't on here bothers me. And the fact that Cursor, which is one of those that gets lots and lots and lots of news in the media and good things are being spoken about it. I haven't played with it personally, but it's again, you'd have heard of it, is a challenger kind of. And again, I'm not quoting Corey Quinn. I did have the same thought, but his newsletter came out today. I'm not plagiarizing you, Corey, whether you listen to this or not, I don't know, but I promise I'm not, in case you do come for me. I did have the same thought. And I've had this about Gartner quite a lot. It makes it feel like it's not entirely fair. Like, has Amazon paid more than any sphere to get Amazon's assistance across? I don't have a fair comparison point, and any comparison I do would be biased anyway because I have inherent biases. Right? Got my shirt on. I'm a community builder. I'm very into the Amazon ecosystem. I like what they do. I want a coin. So I'm kind of all over it, as it were, now. And I've not played with any of the others. So any comparisons I've got would be unfair. But from the noises that you hear from other people and from the media and so on, it just feels iffy to me. It feels iffy. And I don't know. I don't know about this Quadrant. GitHub with Copilot being way out there kind of makes sense just from how long they've been in the market. I've played with Copilot a little bit, but again, this was a long time ago. So my knowledge on it is going to be wrong at this point.
Do you think maybe Claude Code is just going to get merged into GitHub at some point?
No, because GitHub is Copilot, which is a different thing entirely.
Oh, of course, but it's and I'm getting mixed up between the AI LLM vendors because, of course, Anthropic is the one that Amazon is investing in, not Microsoft.
Yes.
So,
the point is,
yes.
I mean, the point with QDev is the assistant layer that sits on top of the LLM. So in the workshop, you could choose between 4.0 Sonnet and 3.5 Sonnet. So, that's kind of, it's the next abstraction layer above. So it's not Claude model, it's Claude code. It's not, Amazon model, it's Q or Kiro, which we're using the Claude models primarily because presumably they're better for this sort of thing.
Yeah, so is it going to become a part of Kiro is the question I should have asked.
I mean, it kind of already is, but the models are, but Claude Code itself is an assistant in and of its own right, which I find its exclusion from this quite strange. Maybe it's too generic. Maybe that's the point. But it's talking about AI code assistants and Claude Code missing. It feels weird.
Well, maybe it'll be in there next time. Who knows? Maybe it'll be in the 2026 Magic Quadrant for AI code assistants. Any thoughts on this one, Mahmoud? Now you've heard us speaking about it. So.
No, I didn't work with this tools before.
Well, maybe you should because John's not been working with them either. But now he's had a play. He's won a coin. He might have mentioned that, but that's not the only reason he's talking about it. But perhaps there's something for you to evaluate as well, and maybe you'll be as excited as John.
Incoming business case for why the business should pay for me to use a QDev premium license.
Is your Kiro cred still working after the workshop?
Oh, good question. I'll have to find out. The license is different though for that because if you have a QDev subscription, you get Kiro, I think, but you can use some AWS credits to pay for QDev, but not for Kiro. That one has to be money. And whilst they've announced the pricing structure for Kiro, it's nothing 20, 40, 80 or something like that. The plans are still coming soon, even though they've told you what it's going to cost.
Well, watch this space. Obviously, as you said, it's rapidly evolving, and it'll be interesting to see where they are in another 12 to 18 months' time. But on that note, we have reached the end of our time for Season 4, Episode 37 of Logicast. So just remains for me to thank you, John, as always, for your insights. And thank you, of course, to our guest, fellow AWS community builder, Mahmoud Khatib, this week. Thank you very much for giving up your time and joining us and sharing what you've been doing in the AWS community in both Syria and Dubai. Keep up the great work there. Thank you very much for sharing your insights on this week's AWS news. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please do give us a review and tell your friends and colleagues. We are available to download from wherever you download your podcasts. And if you'd like to see John's lovely coin that he may have mentioned that he won, check us out on our YouTube channel where he's been flashing it in front of the camera and is continuing.
I mean, the back of it has got brain on it too, which I thought was pretty cool.
No, it's good.
I hadn't actually seen the back before. Now I'm really excited. Anyway, on that note, we have reached the end of our time for Season 4, Episode 37. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode for you.
I have a question before we end.
Yep.
What's the meaning of the Logicast?
Logicast is just a play on words. So Logicata is the company where John and I work, and we wanted to do a podcast, so we kind of named it after the company, Logicast.
We're using the Linus Torvalds method of naming things.
Just name it after ourselves, yeah. So the Logicast podcast brought to you by Logicata. That's no more sophisticated than that, really. But there we go. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you again, Mahmoud, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you so much.